So I do want to begin, Dr. Kate, with some of the basics in terms of defining burnout. So what does it really
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me, Elizabeth. So, really excited to be here with you and your audience today. So, for me and what my research has found when it comes to burnout, it comes through a couple of different things. So, one is something that I call burn events. And so, these are the everyday stressors that occur in our lives. It's that tough meeting, that human that is maybe a little bit difficult to be around, these things that cause overwhelm, fatigue, emotional drain, and they happen in our day-to-day lives. Now, burnout is something that comes from these smaller events. And what happens is we have that burn event and we push through it, and then we continue to push through all these small stressors until they snowball,
Mm.
compound, and then create burnout, which is really highlighted by three key things for me. So it is the loss of joy or passion with your work or an activity. And it's important to note that burnout can happen outside of your career. It can happen with other things in your life. It can happen with a volunteer position. It can happen with parenting. So that's an important piece, but it's that loss of joy or passion there. It is that feeling that those things are now a burden to you and that they've become unmanageable. So you wake up more days of the week than not just with that feeling of like, man, I don't even know where to start because this just feels like it's too much.
Yeah, I think it is that feeling of too much that so many people really identify with. And Google, the searches for the phrase burnout symptoms, it hit an all-time high in May of 2022. So it
Hmm.
seems as though, right now, the time that we're having more, even though this has existed for so long, more people seem to be having the conversation about it.
Hmm. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And it's something that I think that more people are recognizing what their burnout is. I think for a really long time we labeled it as stress, or I'm just, I'm kind of tired of my job. I feel fatigued, I feel overwhelmed. And it wasn't safe in a way to actually call it burnout. Burnout was something that if you were burned out, it was like, oh, well, you're not doing enough at your job or you're not connected to your job. And now we've really owned that it is something that all humans go through. It is part of our stress cycle, and it is okay for us to be talking about it. In fact, it's good for us to be talking about it because it is something that happens in so many lives.
Now, is that the reason or part of the reason behind that great resignation? People just saying, I can't be where I am anymore. I need to find something else and try to get more balance back?
I think that has a lot to do with it. So what I'm seeing is that a lot of people, through the pandemic, realizing that they needed different kind of balance in their life, that they wanted a different life, that they wanted to set their priorities a little bit differently. So that they wanted to prioritize their family or their home life or even some of their hobbies over their workspace. And so that's what some folks have definitely been doing. And I think that's where the great resignation came from, is that they went back to that workspace or they returned from remote working and they realized that, like, man, this is just not working for me.
And what about quiet quitting? Some people think that involves quitting, but it actually doesn't. It's,
Mhm.
I work during these hours and that's when I'm going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I view quiet quitting a little bit differently in that I don't know that it's necessarily, I guess where you're at in management, you can think of it like, oh, I don't want my employees to do that. But I really think about it as terms of people are setting their boundaries, and it feels different because they haven't set those boundaries before. And so instead of having an employee who showed up and went above expectations all the time, now you have folks that are like, I know what, I've read my job description, I've read what I need to get a good performance review, and I'm going to meet those expectations, but no longer go above. And so that's the piece that feels different, I think, to managers and supervisors, but people are truly just showing up in the way that you've asked and expected them to be. And if those expectations have changed because they have put in more before, then you need to highlight that piece.